This show gets a little too real sometimes. We opened this week with a very obvious dream sequence, like seriously, y'all can turn down the lens flare just a tad bit. Still, this was a very nicely directed sequence that had a very dreamy feel to it, and Taya's child actor was legit really good, like he got imitating his adult counterpart down pat. Of course, this is all meant to establish the main conflict of this episode, and Taya's longing for his sensei, though sadly for him, this little sequence had to end eventually.
Taya.
Shut up, Ash. We can't all get the cute girl in the end like you. In the present day, the Boonboomger were going to the kindergarten from his dreams, and I'm guessing either they were very open to literal aliens, or like everyone else, just figured that Doyle and Diesel were probably just guys in suits. I mean, hey, at least they look less terrifying than some other mascots I can think of. Speaking of which, I guess Cannonborg was nearing the end of his arc, as the Hashion higher-ups were giving him the usual ultimatum. Well, if you did, then we'd have to advance the story, and we're still waiting on Tomioka to get back. On a side note, we're almost definitely gonna cover his next show on this channel, so look forward to that because it's looking great so far. But yeah, Cannonborg decided to personally make the Monster of the Week out of a guitar. At the same time, the Boonboomger were having some disgustingly wholesome moments with those kids, sans Homura, who was being a bit of a putz, like of course you can make bigger bubbles with a bigger wand, dude. However, as the cold opener established, this was a Taya-centric episode, so while he was singing a little tune with a guitar, because of course all of this has to connect, the head sensei explained where he had learned his song from, which turned out to be the lay from his dream, Mahiro, who Taya had a pretty typical puppy love for, which of course his friends made fun of.
Well, that was awkward.
Yes, it was.
Jokes aside, I actually really liked this little moment. For one thing, they didn't outright state what happened to Mahiro, so maybe Taya meant it literally, like she quit and went far away, but yeah, let's be honest, the likely interpretation was probably meant to be that she passed away. And they got this across brilliantly, and even kind of subtly, with some flowers at the end of this episode, and just this moment of silence as they all realize, oh crap, we opened up an old wound, didn't we? And from there, they did wisely decide to quickly change the subject in order to recover from this sudden downer mood. Just some great visual storytelling, told in a very adult way for a literal kid show as they were running around this episode. And if that wasn't enough, the Monster of the Week fight actually added to the story rather than be a requisite distraction like they usually are. As while protecting the kids, Tai and Homura got hit by the monster's attack, knocking them out and making them dream something seemingly nice. Oh, it's gonna be one of those episodes. Let me go get my popcorn. Yep, this was a Lotus Eater machine plot where the monster's attack made its victim see a personal paradise. In Homura's case, he was able to see a scenario where he was able to just live on Earth peacefully with his best friend after his parents' passing. Granted, I think a slightly more ideal scenario would be just to live with those parents, but as we'll see, there's a good story reason why he's going with Four Eyes for now. Meanwhile for Taya, it was spending more time with Mahiro, which again just adds to the idea that she was no longer a part of this world. And I gotta say, I just love these sorts of stories, as they often can be used in some rather horrific scenarios where the characters have to question what even is the very definition of reality, and or be a strong test of character. Obviously here, they went more with the latter, as both Taya and Homura had to realize what was important to them, and if they could truly reject seemingly eternal happiness. Granted, their friends could also try to help. There's only one thing to do in this situation. However, and in spite of Cannonborg's claims, Homura managed to wake up rather quickly. Now, I'm not too bothered by this, as one, this show only has 20 minutes to tell the story, unless they chose to be a two-parter, and second, it does match up well with his established personality. The reason Homura can't even be an egotistical putz is because he either didn't regret his initial choice of leaving Earth, or had accepted that his choices had helped to form his current self. Life might have thrown him a ton of curveballs, especially at such a young age, but he took them all in stride and was never going to look back because of them. That said, the same couldn't apply to Taya, as losing Mahiro was never a choice for him. Thus, and while he likely already went through most of the stages of grief, a small part of him likely never made it to the final stage of acceptance. Fortunately, his friends knew of a way to help give him a little boost to finally reach that finish line. They gathered all the kids and teachers in the school and, well... Yes, it's cheesy, but it's the good kind of cheesy, like those craft slices that we used to eat as kids, and maybe even into adulthood. I mean, for one thing, it's a legit good song that encourages people to look forward to whatever tomorrow might bring, and of course in Taya's case, move on from the past, which was something that even the real Mahiro encouraged. Also, goddamn, this dream world was just beautiful to look at. Not only get across that it was a dream, but also the idea that it was a world full of light, kind of like Taya's original dream sequence, and yet also felt synthetic just by its design. Really, I just gotta say, the direction in this episode in general was pretty brilliant. Like seriously, who directed this one? Well, let's see here, Koichiro Hayama, who also did... Oh. Well, that explains a lot. With that, the Boonboomger head out to deal with evil Steven Universe, which yes, this Monsters VA did his Japanese dub. But yeah, as always, good action, especially once 119 entered the fray, and we got an awesome sequence of Tai and Homura pulling a Kingdom Hearts 2. From there, the giant monster fights gimmick was a bunch of stoplights coming out of nowhere. That doesn't exactly match up with what he was doing earlier. I mean, I get that his attack probably wouldn't work on the giant robot, but still, it seems kind of out of nowhere. Well, whatever. Dorio was somehow obligated to knife and disobey an evil monsters law, but of course, that didn't apply to emergency services. Again, kind of out of nowhere power, but at least it was kind of clever. Also, why didn't the Violet duo participate in this one? Well, anyway, the episode ended with Taya giving one last reprise of Mahiro's song, which again might be a little cheesy, but it was saved by the aforementioned flowers at the end. Wow, this was just a really nice episode. Like, even if one sequence was shorter than the other, this was still a good character exploration for both Taya and Homura. We got to see the resolve of one and the vulnerable side of the other. In the case of the latter, it was honestly kind of needed for the overly stoic and kind of invincible Taya. While last week's baseball episode was an understandable requisite plot for this franchise, it still felt lacking in terms of entertainment value, and especially in character building. Thus, it ultimately felt like needless filler. This week though, and while still technically filler, it certainly didn't feel like it. Both Taya and Homura got some meaningful moments just by accepting reality for what it was. Ironically, the guy who had a much rougher life managed to break out first, likely because he had been toughened by his life experiences. Thus, and while Taya certainly is no wimp, he probably does tend to grieve more for what he's lost, like Mahiro, making it a little harder for him to let go. And yet by that same token, he knew she was always encouraging him to just move on, which became the key for him to realize the illusion he was talking to was a fake. Just all around, a really moving tale that shows that for as OP as he is, Taya does truly treasure every aspect of his life, perhaps even to some unhealthy degree. But with the new friends and allies in his life, he was reminded that we all have to move towards that finish line. It's the kind of good drama that makes you forget that you're watching a tokusatsu show until the monster fight, which was still a lot of fun, with some unique gimmicks this week. Still, overall, this is just a great, emotional episode that thankfully even hinted at the main plot finally resuming soon. Hopefully in this show's case, we can move on to some brighter futures and some more interesting plotlines soon. If you haven't seen it yet, on a bit of a whim, we released a compilation of almost all of our wonderful Precure short reviews. Yeah, I'll admit, I kind of put it together a little half-heartedly and probably could have edited a little better, but it seems like it was received moderately well, so we will definitely do one for the second half of the series, with a few more edits and cut-ins to separate the episodes. Also, feel free to let us know if you prefer the smartphone dimensions, or want us to do a standard 28x70 like you're seeing right now. And until next time though, for now my friends, and if you excuse me, I gotta go pack up all of that popcorn. You always end up with leftovers.